Revealed. The spine-chilling secrets of serving cursed monsters in a haunted restaurant. In a dreary corner of the suburbs stood the Lantern Light, a restaurant where the food was as lifeless as the once vibrant restaurant sign hanging at a crooked angle. Here, Lisa juggled her sanity and a table of smirking shadows. The whispers about the place were thick, tales swirling like fog ghosts of the long-gone owner, cursed spirits summoned by the clattering of silverware, and even the eerie flickering of the neon lights. Every night, she felt a prickling dread, the taste of fear coating the walls. When dishes clattered to the floor without a breath in sight, her heart raced, urging her to run. But running wasn't an option. She had bills to pay and a teenage son, Jake, counting on her. "I swear something is following me," Lisa murmured as she wiped down the counter, her hands trembling with the cloth's dampness. The food grew cold, untouched by customers whose eyes darted around nervously, haunted by things they couldn't see. Shadows danced just out of view, splitting her focus fingers. She focused harder when the door creaked open, only to reveal a familiar face, James, the regular whose unsettling smile sent chills racing down her spine. "Lost something?" he asked, leaning closer as he peered into her eyes, his breath rancid with stale smoke. A shiver raced through her. He spoke in riddles, unveiling dark insights about her struggles, his tone laced with a disturbing familiarity that chilled her more than the frigid air outside. Before she could respond, the kitchen erupted in chaos. Plates flew, shattering as though some invisible hand had swept through. Her heart plunged as Jake's face flashed in her mind, a boy grappling with shadows of his own. She glanced toward the back, her resolve wavering. She promised to protect him. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Later that night, while erasing remnants of a busy dinner shift, whispers echoed among the staff. "You saw the portrait, right?" said Tim, his voice low. "The family? They say the restaurant took them. Fed on their misery." Lisa gripped the edge of the table, the words nearly slipping through her fingers. The family in faded photographs stared back at her, ghostly and gaunt, eyes pleading with secrets Lisa couldn't grasp as the chill deepened. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then her phone buzzed. Jake's frantic message flickered across the screen. "Mom, something's in my room. I can hear it." Panic surged through her chest. She dashed out of the restaurant, the unsettling atmosphere chasing her, pulling her back into its dark embrace. The shadows crept closer around her as fog wrapped itself around the streetlights, shrouding the neighborhood in tons of suffocating tension. Every step to her car felt heavier, like the weight of the world flattening her hopes. Heat pooled in her stomach when she realized Jake was alone, vulnerable to the shadows darting just out of her sight. The haunting wasn't just a story anymore. It was real, and it wanted her son. As she gripped the steering wheel, desperation coursing through her body. A scream erupted from her boy's room, echoing in her skull, a sinister symphony of her worst fears come alive. With dread curling around her heart, she knew she needed to face whatever terror awaited them before it swallowed them whole. Would she even survive the night? Or would they become just another whispered story in the town's cursed history? The car screeched to a halt as Lisa flung the door open and ran toward the house. The air felt heavy, thick with dread and anticipation. Each shadow seemed to stretch, clawing at her from the corners of her vision. Her mind raced what could be lurking inside. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice trembling as she crossed the threshold. The house remained eerily still, silence wrapping around her like a shroud. Had she arrived too late? Fear exploded in her chest, and moments stretched painfully as she ran through the dim hallway. Then she heard it, a soft, hollow whisper, like wind through the trees but so much darker. The sound led her to Jake's room, and she hesitated at the door. With a trembling hand, She pushed it open, expecting to find horrors beyond her imagination. Instead, it was the empty room that greeted her. But the window was wide open, curtains billowing outward, twisting like ghostly hands in the night. Moonlight streamed in, casting shadows around the room. "Jake?" she called again, her voice barely a whisper. And then she felt it. Presence. It stood just beyond her eyesight, inevitably drawing close. The walls seemed to breathe as the air grew colder. A chilling feeling skated down her spine, dragging her gaze toward the corner where the shadows writhed and formed something tangible. The outline of a figure started to manifest, a grotesque shape that twisted like vines suffocating a tree. Lisa's heart raced. Panic pulled her deeper into the room, yet her instincts screamed to flee. "Jake!" she cried one last time, the name echoing like a desperate prayer. From behind her, a voice crept into her thoughts, sweet but malignant. "Yes, mine." Now it slithered, curling around her as she spun around. But there was nothing, just empty air. The shadows danced closer, and a glimmer caught her eye, a darkened object on the floor. It was Jake's favorite toy, the one he carried with him since he was a little boy. Frantically, she reached for it, heart pounding with every step, ready to plunge back into the darkness if it meant saving her son. Just then, a gleaming light flickered outside. Lisa rushed to the window, hope igniting in her chest, her mind racing with possibilities. But as she peered out, the world outside had shifted. The streetlights were dim, casting long silhouettes that twisted into eerie shapes. Everything was distorted, like looking at a reflection in a cracked mirror. And in that moment, a shadowy figure stood beneath the nearest streetlight, its eyes glowing like hellfire, burning right into her soul. "Mom!" a small voice whimpered from the shadows behind her. It was Jake. Relief washed over her, but the ominous voice returned, louder now, raw with hunger. "No, he's not for you." In a moment of sheer instinct, Lisa grabbed Jake's toy and turned back toward her son, only to find the room had changed. The walls shimmered with darkness, pulsating like a living creature, eager to swallow them whole. "Run!" she screamed, thrusting the toy at Jake as the shadows lunged, reaching for her with icy fingers. As they burst from the room, Lisa heard the door slam shut behind them. But something deep within her gut told her they weren't out of danger. They raced down the stairs, her feet pounding the hardwood, desperately aiming for the door, but it wouldn't open, as if the house itself refused to let them escape. The night outside felt impossibly far away, leaving them trapped in a nightmare that had come to life. And then she saw it, a flicker in the darkness beyond the door, something barely visible, beckoning. "Mom, please!" Jake cried, but she felt something more sinister than fear clawing at her heart. Lisa gritted her teeth, remembering the cryptic warnings of the restaurant, its haunted history, and her own gut feeling that their connection was no accident. What did the restaurant want with them, and worse, what was lying in wait? The pulse in her chest quickened as the shadows writhed closer, whispering her name like a decrepit lullaby. She turned, determination boiling in her veins. They needed to get out. They needed to fight. But to face the dark, she had to understand what had anchored it here, and what secrets it held about her own bloodline. And deep down, she feared the truth would tear them apart forever. As a new chill crept in, she could only wonder, were they fated to become part of this cursed legacy? The door creaked ominously, ringing low through the oppressive air. Something deeply sinister was about to awaken, something hungering to crawl out of the shadows. The door rattled violently, caught between the insatiable force of the shadows behind it and Lisa's panic-fueled determination to escape. Heart pounding like thunder in her ears, she slammed her body against the door once, twice, desperate for freedom. It felt as if the wood had molded into the wall, imprisoning them in endless dread. "Jake, help me," she gasped, hearing only the pounding of her own heart and the rustle of the dark currents swirling around them. But Jake was frozen, wide-eyed, clutching his toy as if it were a lifeline. "Mom, I don't want to go back," he whimpered, looking toward the swirling darkness that was beginning to seep through the cracks in the door. Just then, a bone-chilling laugh echoed around them, reverberating off the walls. It's too late for that, little boy. You're already part of the feast. The voice enveloped them, a grotesque melody dripping with malice. Lisa flung herself against the door again, feeling it shift just slightly. Come on. Push. She grabbed Jake's arm, her grip tightening like a vice, ready to uproot him from this nightmare. With a surge of adrenaline, they both planted their feet and heaved against the door. It creaked alarmingly, shifting more than it ever had. She felt a glimmer of hope ignite inside her chest. They were getting somewhere. Then, suddenly, a strong force slammed against the door from the other side. The wood splintered at the edges, jagged teeth eager to unleash whatever horror lay behind. Lisa gasped, glancing at Jake. His face was pale, reflecting a fear that suffocated her heart. A moment of clarity washed over her. The restaurant, the whispers, the ominous warnings. This wasn't just a random encounter. The sinister pull of the shadows felt like something personal. The family history she had shunned, buried deep beneath layers of denial, surged back, bringing with it a suffocating urgency. Jake, we have to remember the stories, the lessons, she shouted, rallying herself to focus. The restaurant, it has a hold on our bloodline, something it wants. We can't let it claim you. Suddenly, the door burst open with explosive force, throwing them back as shadows spilled forth like a flood, hungry and ravenous. Lisa caught herself before crashing to the floor and instinctively held Jake close. They staggered back against a wall, the toy clutched tightly in his small hands. The shadowed figures whirled around them, whispering, taunting, beckoning them forward like lost souls. Mom, they're reaching, Jake cried, pointing tremblingly at a thin tendril slithering closer, its icy touch ready to grasp him. No, Lisa shouted, a raw cry filled with desperation. She thrust the toy into the swirling shadows, hoping the love they had for it would shield them. In the instant it touched the dark mass, a shriek erupted, echoing with rage. The shadows recoiled, hissing like a scalded cat, and a momentary opening appeared. Now Jake! She shoved him ahead of her, courage igniting in the face of despair. They dived through the gap into the main room, pain of the past clawing at their backs. The living room was transformed. Furniture was upended, windows shattered, and darkness seeped through the walls like ink. At the center stood a figure, the one she had glimpsed earlier. It twisted and lurched toward them, its eyes burning with a malevolent glow. Flee all you want, but your blood is mine, it boomed, voice twisting into an eerie symphony. With a burst of fear-fueled energy, Lisa grabbed Jake's hand. Into the kitchen, she commanded. Fearing what awaited them, they stumbled through the wreckage, their hearts racing. Just as they reached the threshold, Lisa caught sight of a flicker bright, warm like a beacon against the oppressive smog of dread that ensnared them. But as she dashed toward it, the shadows surged, engulfing the light. Their laughter grew louder, mocking her resolve. There was no guarantee of safety. Mom! Jake gasped, pulling away as something icy brushed against his leg. The threat of the shadows clawing at their heels. The moment hung suspended in air, a precipice teetering. Over an abyss. Was it a true escape or a cruel trick? What if this is all just a trap? She thought, glancing back. But there was no time for hesitation. They had to decide: forward into the light, or surrender to the darkness encroaching around them. But before she could make a choice, one last ominous whisper curled around her thoughts. You can never outrun your past. With each step, you tread closer to your fate, and in that moment, she knew the battle was far from over. The truth about their lineage loomed closer, tangled within the tendrils of horror that awaited them in the shadows. What fate awaited them in the kitchen? Were they stepping closer to salvation or an even darker abyss? Lisa pressed forward, desperation thrumming through her veins. The flickering light drew her like a moth to flame, but the shadows were relentless, howling with fury as they pursued. It felt as though the darkness had a life of its own, twisting and curling around her, seeking to anchor her to some unseen depths. Run, Jake! Don't look back! She gasped, adrenaline surging as she tugged him along. The kitchen door loomed ahead, its frame somehow ominously stained, as if it had absorbed the terror of countless souls. Each step felt like running in molasses. The shadows near her feet clawed and pulled, whispering sinister promises of despair. Come back, come join the feast. They didn't just want Jake. They wanted her too. They burst through the kitchen door, falling into a world of chaos. Dim light flickered from a single bulb overhead, illuminating the horror and revealing the kitchen's nightmarish state. Pots and pans lay scattered, a broken table with splintered legs, and the air thick with rotting food that clung like a memory. The walls pulsated with darkness, flickering tongues of shadow slashing through the air. Mom, they're coming. Jake trembled, his small hand trembling in hers. Stay close, Lisa shouted, scanning for an escape. The shadows slithered at the edges of her vision, creeping into her mind, reminding her of the stories she had pushed away. Suddenly, a metal clang shattered the silence, reverberating off the walls. Lisa's heart leapt in her chest. What was that? She whispered, crouching low. Maybe it's someone? Jake dared to hope. No, we don't know what's here. She snapped, urgency piling on her. They needed a plan. Her eyes darted around, desperately scanning the grim surroundings. An old pantry stood ajar, a glimmer of hope sparking as she realized it could be their refuge. Jake, come on. She beckoned and sprinted toward the pantry, pulling him along. Just as they approached, a chilling growl emanated from the darkness behind them, freezing their blood in place. A figure emerged, cloaked in shadows. Your blood has come home, it hissed, twisting and writhing like something half-human, half-nightmare. It reached out with spindly fingers, the nails sharp as knives, gleaming with malice. A cold dread coiled around Lisa's spine. Get in, she urged Jake, shoving him slightly ahead. As she turned back, a shadow launched forward, wrapping around her wrist like a vice. She screamed, a raw sound of pure terror, as she struggled against its grip. Let go, she cried, panic surging. Jake's voice pierced through the cacophony. Mom! Turning her head, she saw him daring to reach out for her, fear and resolve warring in his small face. The darkness tugged fiercely, dragging her backward into its depths. No! She screamed again, pulling on her maternal instincts. With sheer willpower, she yanked her arm free, stumbling backward into the pantry. Inside, darkness swallowed them, and the door swung shut behind them with a haunting thud. They were enveloped in eerie silence. The only sound was their breathing, quick and shallow. Lisa's heart thundered in her chest, and she tasted a metallic tang of fear. What now? Jake whispered, eyes wide in the dim light filtering through the cracks. Lisa pressed her palms flat against the door, trying to sense what was beyond it. We wait. We have to wait them out. Jake shivered and her heart ached for him. She didn't know if hiding would save them. The whispers outside faded only slightly, but the shadows still clawed hungrily at the edges. Then, a sudden scratch echoed against the wooden door, followed by a voice, deceptively sweet, slithering through the cracks. Little boy, your mother can't save you now. You're meant to join us. Lisa's breath caught. Jake's trembling hand sought hers, squeezing tightly as the shadows resumed their howls. An eerie chorus promising doom. Was hiding their only hope, or merely delaying the inevitable? And as Lisa squeezed her son's hand tighter, she felt it, the tug of ancient ties, histories long forgotten, begging to pull them back. Would they survive long enough to uncover the truth of their lineage, or would the darkness consume them whole, lost in its endless feast? A sharp rasp pierced the silence, the scraping of fingers itching to grasp them. The echoes of scratching fingers clawed at Lisa's heart as she pressed her back hard against the pantry door. Each rasp sent tremors through her body. She turned to Jake, wide eyes glistening with fear. We need to stay quiet, she murmured, swallowing hard, trying to steady her voice. Jake nodded, his small frame trembling like a leaf in a storm. The shadows outside pulsed with hunger, casting dark fingers under the door, creeping toward them. Every minute stretched into eternity, thick with dread, the smell of decay lingering like a ghost in the air. Then came a disappointed sigh from the other side. You can't hide forever. Sweet boy, your mother won't be able to protect you. The voice twisted around her, soothing yet menacing, dripping with the promise of something far worse than death. Lisa bit her lip to keep from crying out. Mom, what is happening? Jake whimpered, clutching her hand like a lifeline. Just hold on, she whispered back, squeezing his hand as tears pricked her eyes. Memories of their family, the warmth of sunny days were swallowed by the fear consuming the moment. The shadows outside shifted, pooling and swirling, forming vague shapes like roiling smoke. She peered through the cracks, desperate to catch a glimpse of what hunted them. The light from the single bulb flickered, casting grotesque shapes on the pantry walls, an army of nightmares inching closer. Join us, join us, they chanted, voices overlapping into a horrifying symphony, each note laced with longing and anguish. It was the sound of every regret, every painful secret, a beckoning from the abyss that promised release. Lisa turned and knelt down, meeting Jake's fearful gaze. Listen to me, she said, her voice steadying. If we ever get out of here, you must remember we don't let fear take control. But I'm scared, he breathed, tears spilling down his cheeks. I know, baby, I'm scared too. But we have to be brave. Jake nodded, though doubts clouded his features. Outside, a heavy thud reverberated against the door, shaking the wood and sending a jolt through them. The shadows surged with renewed energy. Mom, do they want to eat us? Jake squeaked, eyes round with terror. Whatever they want, we can't give it to them. She hissed. We're stronger than they are. It was a lie, but she clung to it. She needed him to have hope, even as the shadows clawed at her resolve. Another scrape sounded, followed by a low growl that vibrated through her bones. The door shuddered in its frame, and Lisa understood time was running out. Stay back, she barked suddenly, unable to keep the fear from her voice. Something dark could sense their fear. It thrived on it. She sensed the impending threat. If they stayed quiet, the door could hold for a while longer, a sliver of hope in an engulfing darkness. But suddenly, the wooden planks creaked ominously. A figure loomed closer, the grotesque shape looming against the faint light from the cracked door. For a moment, Lisa thought she could see its eyes reflecting the dim light like burning coals, hungry, ancient, waiting. Your blood is ours, forever. The whisper filled the space, coiling around her thoughts. Lisa's breath hitched in her throat as panic surged, merging with a primal instinct. We have to break out, she whispered urgently to Jake. His eyes widened in surprise. Before she could think, she pushed against the door, and it swung open with a deafening crash, slamming against the wall and shaking loose dirt from the rafters. And no more waiting. They were plunged into a chaos that made the kitchen seem tame. The shadows poured into the pantry like liquid night. Run! Lisa screamed, pulling Jake out into a world of madness. But just as hope ignited, an icy grip seized her ankle, pulling her down. The darkness chortled, echoing the dread vows of retaliation. Jake! She cried, reaching for her son who was already darting ahead. He turned back, eyes wide. Mom! Keep going. The words cut through the air, her voice fierce and desperate against encroaching despair. With one last tug, she broke free, and they were both running through the suffocating gloom. Shadows flared around them, dark tongues snapping like angry vipers. But there was no time to breathe, no time for fear. Through the chaos, a glimmer of light flickered in the distance, a tease of salvation. Just ahead, hope had a name, or so it seemed. Would it lead them to safety, or was it merely the lure of the abyss, beckoning them back into the darkness? The shadows howled in rage behind them, pooling together, ready to strike. In that moment, the answer seemed as far away as the flickering light. What would Lisa sacrifice to reach it? What truth would reveal itself at the end of this dark corridor? Panic surged as Lisa clutched Jake's small hand tighter, her heart pounding in sync with the chaotic rhythm of his terrified breaths. The light ahead pulsed, an ethereal glow beckoning them onward. But the shadows behind were relentless, slithering toward them like the insatiable claws of some ancient beast awakened from its slumber. Don't look back, Lisa screamed, forcing her voice to betray no hint of her terror. She felt the cold tendrils of darkness trailing just behind her, whispering promises of despair and anguish. They thundered forward, each step echoing through the suffocating silence, their surroundings morphing into a hellscape of flickering shadows and looming shapes that danced dangerously close. "Mom, I can't keep running," Jake wheezed, his legs trembling, pushing beyond their limits. Sweat beaded on his brow, and for a moment, guilt flooded through Lisa. What kind of mother was she, dragging her son into this nightmare? But she pushed the thought aside. There wasn't time for guilt, only survival. They dashed past the remnants of their kitchen, a twisted reflection of their once ordinary life. The table lay overturned, chairs scattered like fallen soldiers. Dread wrapped around her like a noose, tightening with every glance at the dark corners, where flickering shadows seemed to stretch forth, hungry and waiting. "Keep moving," Lisa urged, scanning their surroundings for an escape route. To the right, a door stood ajar, swinging slightly on rusted hinges, promising refuge or perhaps something worse. But there was no choice. Every second felt like an eternity, and the shadows bellowed behind them like a tempest ready to swallow them whole. Without hesitating, she yanked Jake toward the door. "In there," she ordered, her heart racing with the fear of what lay ahead and the dread of what they were leaving behind. As they slipped through the door, darkness engulfed them fully, swallowing the faint glow of the hallway. Inside the small room, cobwebs caressed them, swaying gently in the stale air. It smelled musty, like forgotten memories. Lisa could barely see through the dim light filtering from a broken window, but she could hear it, the unnerving whispers that filled the silence. It was the same voice from before, weaving in and out of the fabric of the air around them. "Sweet boy, come to us," it coiled around her, invading her mind as the shadows danced playfully on the walls. Lisa felt an overwhelming urge to join them, to give in to their haunting song. But she shook her head violently, fighting the compulsion, forcing her gaze back to Jake. "Mom, what are we going to do?" His voice cracked, filled with a despair that threatened to choke her. She knelt down to his eye level, cupping his face with her trembling hands. "We're going to find a way out of this. Listen to me, focus only on my voice. Do you hear that?" she asked, trying to drown out the anguished calls surrounding them. "What?" he whispered, his wide eyes glistening with fear. "Listen closer, it's the sound of hope," she said, shaking her head rapidly. It was becoming harder to think, her resolve warring against the creeping shadows that tugged at her mind. "We have to." A sudden crash interrupted her. The door they had entered through burst open, violently thrown aside. There, framed in the doorway, stood a shadowy figure, its form blurred and monstrous. It was shifting, growing, limbs contorting into grotesque angles. A low growl escaped it, vibrating through the air, a sound so forbidding that Lisa felt it in her bones. "Join us," it taunted, its eyes glowing like molten fire. "No," Lisa shouted, pushing Jake behind her, blocking him from view. The creature advanced, its wicked form twisting and expanding, reaching for them with long, clawed fingers. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony pulling at the edges of her sanity. "Mom!" Jake's voice cut through the noise, piercing her resolve. "Run to the window," she shouted. The faint light behind her flickered, casting elongated shadows against the walls. She glanced back, horror pulling at her heart. Time was slipping away, and they needed to make their next move. But as she turned, the shadow lunged again, faster this time, a rush of darkness aiming straight for them. Lisa's heart stopped. She shoved Jake toward the window, her instincts screaming to protect him at all costs. "Go!" she yelled, and at the last moment, she lunged to intercept the looming threat. With anger and desperation igniting something deep within her, she faced the darkness head-on. It howled in fury, reaching out with claws too close for comfort. A flicker of hope pushed her forward. Would her sacrifice be in vain? As Jake scrambled to the window, Lisa felt the pressure of the darkness coiling around her like a tightening vice. The last glimpse of her son, sunlight illuminating the edges of his face, was all she held on to. If Jake got out, if he could escape, what darkness awaited him outside if he did? Would he be free? The answer loomed like the shape grasping for her heart. But in that suffocating silence, Lisa knew one thing. Whatever waited beyond the shadows wouldn't stop until it had devoured them both. Whatever she was about to face, it was now or never, and she had to find a way to fight back. Before it was too late, the shadow lunged again, and in that instant, something primal ignited within Lisa. She charged forward, hands outstretched, aiming to grasp whatever tendril of darkness dared to reach for her child. The creature recoiled, momentarily deterred by her fierce resistance. "Jake, now!" she screamed, urgency pouring from every word. With frantic determination, he scrambled to the window. Behind him, the room trembled. Shadows writhed like the stormy sea, desperate to reclaim their prey. The whispers swelled, stinging her ears with promises of torment, drawing her mind deeper into despair. Jake fumbled with the broken glass, the shards reflecting his fear in 1,000 fractured images. "Mom, I can't get out." His voice wavered, a candle flickering against the overwhelming dark. "Just climb through," she urged, the panic clawing at her throat, making it hard to breathe. She turned toward the creature, its eyes locked onto her, a predatory glint simmering, as if savoring the imminent victory. With a roar, the entity lunged again, and Lisa ducked just in time. The claws scraped against the wall, splintering wood and sending a shower of dust cascading down. She could feel the cold steel of its presence wrapping around her, a serpent constricting tighter, but she couldn't break. "Mom!" Jake cried out, desperation breaking through the storm of noise. He was wedged halfway through the window now, a sliver of daylight escaping his grasp, and in that fraught moment, Lisa's heart sank. No, she wouldn't let it end like this. Not here. Not now. "I'm coming, Jake," she gasped, adrenaline flowing through her veins like fire. With an explosive surge, she charged toward her son, forcing her body to go where fear paralyzed her mind. The creature snarled, and she could feel its breath, a foul mix of decay and anguish, licking the back of her neck. But instinct and determination drowned out the horror. "Keep pushing," she urged him, her hand reaching for his leg as he dangled precariously. The raspy growl of darkness beckoned, wrapping tendrils around her wrist, igniting unbearable pain. "Mom!" Jake screamed, fighting to pull himself free. "Just a little more," she shouted back, teeth clenched against the agony surging through her. If the darkness took her, it would take him too. She couldn't let that happen. With one last burst of strength, Lisa yanked him back. The creature howled as it lost its potential prize. It flailed, clawing at nothing, anger spilling into the air like a thick fog of malice. But Lisa was too late. Its attention shifted once again. In an instant, the warmth of Jake evaporated from her fingertips as he finally slipped through the window, landing outside with a thud. "Jake!" she yelled as he scrambled to his feet, eyes wide, trying not to look back. But no, he couldn't leave her. "Don't leave me." He paused, torn between the fear of the monstrous creature and his mother's agonizing plea. She could see it in his trembling frame, the hesitation, the instinct to save himself versus the bond of blood. "Mom, please." His voice shattered her heart, the shadows thickening, creeping closer like uninvited memories. The ghastly creature surged toward her, hungry and wicked. "Run, Jake! Get help!" she cried, her voice cracking under the weight of despair. In that moment, the creature lunged again, and Lisa screamed not for herself, but for the boy she would sacrifice everything to protect. Then everything went dark. Pain ripped through her, but it wasn't over. The pale rays of a new light surrounded her in a dazzling flash that felt like a brutal kick against her consciousness. Was it the soft light of salvation, or the cold grasp of the void? She gasped as if waking from a nightmare, feeling the remnants of shadow swirling around her like a whirlpool. "Jake, where was Jake?" The frantic whispers returned, now sharper and clearer, as if reaching into her soul. "He is lost, he is ours now." Terror seized her chest with icy fingers. The very walls of reality felt like they were closing in. They were nesting shadows, and she was just their prey. Forcing herself to breathe, Lisa pushed against the consuming dark, determined to fight back. No, I won't let you take him. With every ounce of willpower, she strained against the shadows, fueled by hope and unwavering love for her son. And then, suddenly, the world trembled. What emerged from the depths remained cloaked in darkness, but whispers faded into gasps of anticipation. An eerie silence filled the room. The remnants of light flickered like dying stars, illuminating something lurking just out of sight. Join us, it called again, more sinister than before. And as the shadows twitched and swirled, Lisa realized something terrifying. She had not only awakened the darkness within the house, but something even darker within herself. The fight was just beginning. But would she be strong enough to embrace what she had become? What shadows awaited her next? Lisa fought against the encroaching darkness, her heart a frantic drum in her chest. The whispers grew louder, like a chorus of tortured souls, clawing at her sanity. Join us, join us. Their voices twisted her name into a song of despair. She could see faint outlines of the creatures hovering nearby, their eyes piercing through the shadow, limbs coiling with anticipation. The pressure around her tightened, making it hard to breathe. Despite the terror bubbling within her, she refused to waver. Get away from me, she shouted, her voice strong against the darkness. As if triggered by her defiance, the shadows recoiled, transforming momentarily into swirling forms, tiny glimpses of the horrors they could inflict. Then she felt it, a flicker of warmth in her chest, a remnant of the love for her son. Fueled by that elation, she drove her arms forward, summoning strength she didn't know she had. Light burst from her fists, illuminating the area, momentarily vanquishing the shadows that had been closing in. Spectral screams echoed, drowning in that brief glow. But the light came at a price. The moment the shadows slinked away, they didn't vanish. No, they retreated to gather. Reforming into a swirling mass of gluttonous darkness, a monstrous figure took shape. Its form undulated, giving her glimpses of a nightmare come to life. Eyes flickering like candles, teeth like shattered glass, a mouth twisting into a malevolent grin. It had been hungry for her fear, and now it had found what it sought. Foolish girl, it hissed, breath fetid and heavy. You think this light can save you? You are the darkness now, entwined with us. Lisa felt icy claws of dread grip her throat as realization crashed over her. I will find him, she declared, pushing back her rising panic. Jake needs me. I won't let you take him. The creature roared, a sound filled with echoed rage, snapping the air around her like a whip. Shadows surged forward, striking at her with an angry fervor. She ducked and dodged, each movement pulsating with instinct. Her jaw clenched, a battle cry escaping her lips. I won't let you have him. The ground beneath her feet shook violently, and she stumbled. In the chaotic disarray, she caught a flicker of color, an emerald glint buried in the folds of the dark. Hope glimmered momentarily, and she lunged toward it, as the creature shrieked, a sound that crawled into her bones. Stop! It bellowed, but Lisa was already grasping that flicker, a shard of jagged glass, sparkling ominously beneath the shadows. Without thinking, she raised it, feeling a surge of power course through her. Get away! As the light erupted anew with every heartbeat, the creature shrank back in terror, its shadowy form quivering. She felt the currents of the other side funneling into her, a mix of entrapment and strength. Let him go, she yelled, focusing on Jake, calling out to him. In that instant, a vision flashed before her. Jake outside, pleading, face twisted in fear, a shadow many found familiar wrapping around his feet. Jake! Panic engulfed her, and she knew she had to fight. The light exploded around her like a supernova, illuminating the twisted tapestry of shadows that clung to the walls, and for a fleeting moment, she became the beacon against the encroaching darkness. She pressed onward toward the creature, driven by the love for her son. A mother's will forged anew. But then the room distorted, as if the very fabric of reality was ripping apart. The creature moaned, now a chittering whisper caught between despair and rage. You cannot escape. The darkness is yours. You will never be free. Everything shifted. Lisa felt herself pulled in two directions, her very essence trembling against the chasm between light and shadow. Jake! She cried out again, feeling the fabric of her own being fracture beneath the weight of that truth. She chose her path. Haunted whispers twisted around her. It's not a choice. It's a pact. The world continued to break apart, the shadows knitting and unknitting the air between them. The creature lunged once more, and the distance from Jake was suffocatingly close yet impossibly far. Will you save your son? It sneered, vile triumph dancing in its eyes. Or embrace your own shadow? The decision loomed before her, an abyss threatening to swallow her whole. With heart racing, Lisa prepared for her next move. Which would she choose? Would the light save her or drag her down into the dark pit of despair? The world around Lisa felt as if it was splintering, each crack echoing with torment. The shadows clawed at her skin, cold and persistent. She grasped the shard tighter, its sharp edges biting into her palm, anchoring her to the moment. Her heart raced, beating like a warning as she felt the creature's gaze burn into her. I will not give up, she shouted, summoning every ounce of defiance. The light pulsed from her, bright and fierce, scaring the shadows that tried to encroach again. The creature recoiled, the flickering flames in its many eyes dimming, momentarily blinding it. The echoes of Jake's voice reverberated in her mind, soft, pleading. She couldn't lose him. The light flickered in response to her thoughts, igniting deeper flames of hope that pushed back the darkness. But then, lingering dread gripped her as the creature laughed, a sound that slithered like venom into her heart. You think hope can save you? Hope is a precursor to despair. You will fall into agonies that even light cannot shield you from. Lisa's resolve wavered, exposed to the truths it spewed like bitter bile. Was hope merely an illusion? She quickly shook the feeling. No, she needed faith, a lifeline stretching beyond the stark chasm of shadows. Even momentary flickers of light could sear through the darkest fears. With renewed purpose, she turned and sprinted towards the flickering light of the emerald shard, its allure burning at the edges of her vision, guiding her like a beacon through an ocean of night. Shadows whispered at her heels, hissing secrets, and mocking her pursuit. They promised the end of pain if she would just submit. Liar! She yelled back, her voice steady despite the tremor in her legs. I'm not afraid of your lies. As she drew closer to the glimmer, she saw that it wasn't just a shard, it was a key that pulsed with energy, reflecting the remnants of memories long forgotten. She could feel the focus of countless souls, trapped within that single shard, and their silent screams echoed in her ears. In that moment, clarity washed over her. She wasn't just fighting for herself or even for Jake. She was fighting for those lost souls, tied to the darkness, ensnared by despair. If she could wield the light, perhaps she could set them free and bind the creature in its own darkness. Without thinking, she plunged the shard into the ground, the impact sending shards of light ricocheting into the abyss. The shadows screeched as the brilliance spread, returning to them the anguish they had meted out for centuries. The creature writhed, twisting and shrieking, as if fire coursed through ice in its veins. Stop this! It howled, its voice rising in genuine terror now. You will condemn us all. No! Lisa shouted, voice strong and shaking the very foundations of the realm. You have condemned yourselves. With each pulse of her heart, the light grew, erupting like a ferocious flame, swallowing shadows, expanding toward Jake's side, an unfurling lifeline. She felt the connection sharpen, their fates intertwining, the warmth blossoming in her chest. Jake's image flickered again, clearer now, his small body trembling against the encroaching shadow that wrapped around him. Mom! He cried, and the sound cleaved through her heart. But as the light surged, a counterattack began. The creature, desperate and enraged, lashed out, sucking the light into itself like a black hole. The air thickened with suffocating dread as Lisa felt her spirit teetering on the edge of oblivion. What will you sacrifice? It hissed, eyes glinting cruelty, your son or your own soul? With the weight of the decision crashing down, Lisa's breath hitched. This was the darkest moment, a pit of despair wider than she ever imagined. Everything hung in the balance. No, she gasped, the realization blasting through her. I won't give in. The thread of determination pooled into a singular cry, reverberating through the dark void, stitching together the frayed edges of her spirit for what was coming next. Would the light truly save them, or would it cost her everything? The blinding light pulsed from the shard, radiating warmth that reached every corner of the suffocating shadows. Lisa clutched it tight, heart hammering against her ribs, the weight of the creature's malevolence suffocating but not enough to crush her spirit. I choose hope, she shouted, feeling the resolve engulf her like flames chasing away the darkness as she surged forward. The shadows writhed, screeching as if the very fabric of their existence was being shredded by the light. You cannot banish us, the creature snarled, but its bravado was tinged with panic. This darkness is your fate. Not today, Lisa rebutted, the clarity of her purpose striking like lightning. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was a fight against the curse that had tainted their bloodline for generations. She wasn't merely battling for herself, but for every soul lost to the shadows within the cursed restaurant, every lost connection, every lingering regret. She felt Jacob's face right before her, his innocent smile lost in the undertow of despair, urging her forward. Then, an idea cracked through her mind, jutting sharp as glass. I will not let you take what I love, she roared, charging at the encroaching darkness. The creature lunged, teeth bared, but she thrust the shard into the ground again. The explosion of light illuminated the void, revealing the essence of other trapped souls, tormented echoes of the past, swirling like ghostly embers. Be free, Lisa commanded, her voice breaking through the cacophony. She pictured Jacob's laughter, the sweet sound resonating in her heart like a song of defiance. I will break your chains, she vowed again, pouring every ounce of love and desperation into the light. The shadows twisted fiercely, howls of torment cutting through the air. They recoiled, furious at the disruption to their dominion. The light wrapped around Lisa, encompassing her like a protective embrace against the predator lurking beyond. She felt herself growing stronger, the bond to Jake surging within the radiant glow. Just as the darkness lunged again, Lisa's hand shot upward. A bolt of luminous energy surged into the air, fracturing the sinister rhythm of the world with brilliant sparks. The shadows howled, frantic, as if the very act of resistance was unbearable. And with her heart pounding, she cast the light outwards, toward the vortex of shadow that festered in the center, pulling it taut. Set them free, she cried, channeling every ounce of sacrifice, every ounce of love into the light. Her thoughts of Jake, every moment they shared, flooded her being, weaving an armor against the consuming void. The light exploded outward, magnificent and fierce, and for a moment, Lisa believed she could see Jake beyond the tumult, caught in the embrace of light, a smile of recognition dawning on his face. Mom, he shouted, and though his voice was muffled, it pierced through like a beacon. I'm here. With her son's name on her lips, she surged toward the heart of shadow, determined to bridge the chasm of despair. The creature screeched, the malevolence cracking under the weight of her love. You can't hold us any longer, Lisa roared, the declaration awakening something deep within. A legacy of strength and resilience. In one final clash, the light erupted, engulfing everything in a searing brilliance. The entity wailed, and then all at once, darkness splintered, fraying into twisted shadows, evaporating like smoke in the breeze. Lisa squeezed her eyes shut against the brilliance, feeling it ripple across her skin, reverberate within her bones. When she opened her eyes, silence enveloped her. For a moment, the air was still. Then a tiny figure materialized, the very one she fought for. Jake stood there, eyes wide and filled with questioning joy, the shadows swirling harmlessly around him. Mom? He whispered, each syllable a fragile thread binding them together. Jake! She cried, rushing forward, scooping him into her arms. The warmth of his little body grounded her, bringing back normalcy amidst the chaos. Tears spilled down her cheeks, relief flooding her heart. They were free. The echoes of the haunted shadows faded, crackling away like distant thunder. I was scared. Jake's voice quivered, and she pressed him close, kissing his forehead as fear melted away into the embrace of love. I know, baby, but you're safe now. We're safe. The restaurant's cursed legacy no longer bound them. It was nothing more than a haunting memory. A chapter closed as they stepped toward the light filtering through the doorway. The mundane world waited just outside, calling them back to life. With one last glance at the shadows, Lisa felt gratitude brim in her chest. No more would the darkness suffocate them. No more would it steal away the light of precious moments. Together, hand in hand, they crossed the threshold into the radiant dawn, and as sunlight poured over them, illuminating their path, Lisa vowed to embrace their future, one filled with love and hope, far removed from the whispers of the past. The shadows could not haunt them anymore. They had emerged victorious together. Now, dear friends, this is your moment to show your support. Remember to subscribe immediately to the channel. You don't want to miss the next exclusive stories that are coming your way. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Your like could mean everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. Let's hear how you feel. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans truly understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.